Congratulations, you're under contract for your new dream home to be. I know you're really excited about it, but then you're thinking, oh my gosh, what inspections do we need to do? Well, my name's Armand, realtor with Team Armand eXp Realty. I've been in business since 2003, have done over 1,000 deals in my time, and I've got some advice for you. So I'm gonna run down the buyer home inspections we mostly recommend in every deal. Are you ready for that? Here we go. There's going to be about 13 of these, so brace yourselves. Just a little bit of information here, so I hope you'll stick with me. Okay? All right. Obviously, the first inspection we usually think about is the standard home inspection. And that's absolutely got to be done right away. We book that right away. That's also for a resale house. What about if you're buying new construction? Well, we still do a standard home inspection in those cases, but we have to wait until that new construction house has received its certificate of occupancy, its CO. Because we can't inspect the house unless everything's in good working order, unless everything's actually hooked up and working. Electricity, plumbing, all the appliances, everything. So we have to wait for the CO to get issued before we can actually do the standard home inspection. And by the way, once that CO has been issued, those builders, they want to close on that house right away, ASAP. So it can be a bit of a rush to get that standard home inspection in there during that time. That's our job as your agent to make sure that it happens. And in addition to getting a standard home inspection on new construction, we also strongly recommend what's called a pre-drywall inspection. That's where a home inspector comes in and checks everything out before the drywall, before the insulation has been put up. That way they can see all the electrical work, all the plumbing work, all the structural work. It's really critically important to get a pre-drywall inspection done on new construction. Second thing to think about is getting a pest inspection done. Obviously, here in North Carolina, we do have some problems with termites, and we've got to check every single property for pests, for termites. That said, once again, that's a little bit different with new construction. New construction, per code, the ground around the foundation has to be treated for termite protection, and usually that protection should last 5 to 8 years. That's definitely something that we will check for you to make sure it's been done. And of course, if it's been treated, there's really no reason to do a pest inspection. But certainly with a regular resale house, we've got to do a pest inspection. Then next, we got to talk about, okay, what happens if the house is on well and septic? Well, definitely we have to get both the well and the septic system checked out. We've got to check out the well to see if there's any kind of bacteria, coliform or E. coli bacteria. A lot of times we check for heavy metals contaminations. Sometimes we even check for radioactive materials. We have had some problems here in the Triangle area on the far eastern side of the Triangle with wells being contaminated from uranium deposits. Something to consider. As far as the septic system is concerned, definitely let's get that checked out. You know, the septic systems can be an issue, but we always get them checked out. If it's new construction, both the well and the septic system should have already been inspected by the code inspector, so we're generally okay there. That said, sometimes we even get those checked out again by our private home inspectors. Can be recommended. Next thing to talk about is radon. So this is something we strongly recommend checking every single house, whether it's resale or new construction, for radon. Radon is an odorless, colorless gas that's actually everywhere. We're actually breathing radon everywhere, even as we speak here. However, radon is heavier than air, heavier than regular air. So a lot of times it comes up through the foundation, through the ground into the house. If it does that in significant amounts, it will collect in the lower levels of the house. Certainly if you have a basement and radon is coming in there, radon is going to collect in the basement. If you're on a slab, it's more likely that it's going to come up into the house. If you're in a crawl space, a little less likely, but still we want to get it checked out. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer behind smoking. And it's especially dangerous to young children. So we definitely recommend getting a radon test done. Now, by the way, a lot of builders with new construction are already going ahead and installing radon mitigation systems as a standard thing. Not everyone, but some are. And if there is a radon problem, it's not that big a deal because radon mitigation systems cost anywhere from $1,200 to $2,400. Not a big deal. Shouldn't be a big deal. Next thing to talk about is the survey. Yes, we strongly recommend getting a survey done on whatever property you're purchasing, except for maybe a condominium. Believe it or not, we recommend it with a townhouse. But certainly with a standalone house, we need to know where the borderlines are. We need to know if the neighbor's fence is on your property or if your fence is going to be on their property. We need to know if their driveway is on your property or your driveway is on their property. Sometimes there could be a shed or literally something We've had situations where literally a house was built on the line with a survey, and that's obviously a real problem. Those kind of situations must be resolved before closing, and we can do that. Those are the main inspections we recommend. There can be further inspections that are either recommended or warranted from the previous inspection. First of all, especially, for example, a structural engineer's inspection. Now, we usually don't start with a structural engineer's inspection. The standard home inspector doing the standard home inspection, they're trained to look for evidence of structural problems. They're not structural engineers, but they've got a pretty good eye. They can tell when there's a structural problem. However, they can't really say that this is a structural problem. It's only a structural engineer that has a license that can really certify that this is a structural problem. Structural engineers' inspections cost a little bit more than a standard home inspection, so we generally don't start with them unless we see real evidence, some problems with the foundation that are pretty obvious that warrant a structural engineer's inspection. Other inspections that could be warranted or recommended would be like a roofer, having a roofer come out and check out the roof. Yes, the standard home inspection will check out the roof, but sometimes they say, hey, there's something happening here, I'm not quite sure what's going on, let's get a regular roofer to look at it. By the way, roofs here in North Carolina generally last between 20 and 25 years. So sometimes the standard home inspector will say, hey, you know, this roof is 23 years old. It's still working, it's not really leaking, but you might want to have a roofer take a look at it just to see what kind of condition it is in, see how long it's going to be before that roof needs to be replaced. Another recommended inspection could be getting the heating and air conditioning systems checked out. Yes, the standard home inspector will check those out, but only to a certain point. They can't really open things up and see what's happening inside those boxes. One problem we have is a lot of times a standard home inspector will say there may be a crack in the heat exchanger in the furnace. They can look in there and they can see how the flame is burning. If it's not burning pure blue, there might be oxygen getting into that heat exchanger, and there might be a crack in the heat exchanger. So that would warrant having a regular heating and air conditioning technician come out and take a deeper look. That could be recommended. Another recommended inspection might be, in rare cases, checking for asbestos. We don't have too much problem with asbestos here in the Triangle area. One place where it does show up occasionally is in the popcorn ceiling. Popcorn ceiling up until 1978 did sometimes have asbestos in it. After 1978 it was outlawed, so sometimes it's good for a check for that. Sometimes there can be flooring tiles that have asbestos. Sometimes there can even be siding. Old siding that was done in the 40s and 50s, some of that had actually asbestos in it also. So it might be a good idea to check for that. Another possible inspection would be a lead-based paint inspection. We rarely do those. Lead-based paint was outlawed in 1978, so after that, if the house was built after 1978, there would not be any lead-based paint in there. But however, if it was built before then, you can pretty much count that there was lead-based paint in it. It's been covered over by many, many years of subsequent paint jobs, but there's probably going to be some lead-based paint in there. Lead-based paint inspections are kind of expensive, which is why we just sort of recommend that you just assume that there's lead-based paint in a house built before 1978. So, and that means that if you do any work on the houses built before in 1978 and before, it's got to be done by someone who is certified to work with lead-based paint. That's a regulation here in North Carolina. Finally, another possible recommendation for an inspection would be soil samples if there is an underground storage tank, an underground oil tank, or even if there's an above ground oil tank that's been there for a long time. It'll leak into the ground and you've got oil in the ground. Sometimes it's advisable to check to see if ground has been contaminated with oil. There are many, many things to talk about. Once you're under contract, many inspections to consider. That's our job, is to help our buyers decide what to do. It's our job to get them connected with the best in the business for any of these inspections. We've been in the business a long time, so we know who are the best people to call. It's our job to help buyers interpret what the home inspectors are saying, and certainly it's our job to present the findings to the listing agent and say, hey, this is a problem with the house. Let's figure out how to deal with it. That said, it's important for buyers to know going in what home inspections we're likely to need to do, okay? If you need more information about this, please contact me. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. There you go. That's a rundown for buyer home inspections. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.